Okay, I would like to reconvene the 7th meeting of the Committee on Land and Physical Infrastructure of the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, and to welcome everyone present, as well as the viewing and listening audience to this inquiry. I would like to advise that this meeting is being broadcast live on the Parliament's Channel 11 and Radio 105.5 FM and the Parliament's YouTube channel, ParlView. I would like to welcome officials of the Trinidad and Tobago Electricity Commission, T&TEC, and introduce myself. I am Derup Timal, Chairman of the Joint Select Committee on Land and Physical Infrastructure, and I would like to invite committee members, if you can please introduce yourself. We can go in any order.
Lisa Morris Julian, member.
Thank you, member.
Kennedy Richards Jr., member.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Nigel DeFreitas, member.
Thank you, member DeFreitas.
Good afternoon, Simon de Nobrega, member.
Thank you, member de Nobrega.
Good afternoon, Anil Roberts, member.
Thank you, member Roberts. Member Hussein, are you there? Yeah, member Hussein, you are muted.
Good afternoon, Saddam Hussein, member.
Okay, thank you. Those are the members of our committee. And the purpose of this particular meeting is to commence the first public hearing pursuant to the committee's inquiry into the management of T&TEC and related recommendations with representatives of T&TEC. I would just like to remind everyone of our objectives of this inquiry. We have 3 major objectives. 1, to examine the current management strategies at T&TEC. 2, to identify the challenges related to managing power and electricity services in Trinidad and Tobago. And 3, to make recommendations to improve the management strategies at the Commission. So at this point, I would like to ask the chairman of T&TEC or the general manager, of T&TEC for introductions of him and his team, and also invite him to make some brief opening remarks, limited to not more than probably 5 minutes. The general manager.
Right, thank you, Chairman and members of the Joint Select Committee for Land and Physical Infrastructure. Let me say hello to all the, I know this is coming live, so let me say hello to all the members of the populations outside there. Thank you very much. So my name is Kelvin Ramsuk. I am the General Manager at T&TEC. So Chairman might probably let them go around and introduce themselves so they could see them.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, I'm Neil Balgobin, the Chief Financial Officer at T&TEC.
Good afternoon, I am Curvis Francois, I'm the Chief Operating Officer, T&TEC. Thank you.
Good afternoon, I am Jacqueline Cheeseman, the Chief Human Resources Officer at T&TEC.
Good afternoon, I am Chris Alston-Bell, the Chief Technical Officer at T&TEC.
Okay, thank you, officials. Mr. Ramsuk, I would invite you to make some brief opening remarks before we get into the questioning.
Sure, thank you very much, Chairman. So the Commission wants to officially thank the committee for this hearing today. It gives us an opportunity to advocate or a number of details related to our operations at T&TEC. We at T&TEC, from has been doing a number of, in terms of our mandate, a number of operational issues that would have benefited the customers at large in Trinidad and Tobago. Of course, given the issue of the pandemic, that has not made our situation as easy, but nevertheless, we have moved forward. We have made a number of adjustments in T&TEC, and having done that, we continue to provide the level of service comparable to, we benchmark our service to many utilities internationally. So we continue to provide the level of service, and we monitor our performance and compared with a number of utilities throughout the world. And the evidence continues to show that our performance has been equally comparable. In some cases better, of course, in some cases not as good. But certainly, as we continue to strive to move forward, we continue to put mechanisms in place to improve our performance. So as I said, we are happy for this meeting here today. It will give us a wonderful opportunity to interact with the committee. I know the committee will be looking at some of the answers. And of course, whatever recommendations you make, I'm sure it's going to be to the benefit of T&TEC and by extension the country as we provide service to the nation. Thank you very much, Chairman. Right, Chairman, we're not hearing you. I'm not too sure if your mic is mute.
Oh, sorry about that. I was just saying that for members to direct their questions and concerns through the chair, and that please keep your microphones muted until recognized by the chair. And please, for members to use the raise hand feature so that we can recognize you accordingly and you can make your contribution. So I'll now open the floor to members of the committee to ask questions that they may have. And I'll probably invite Member Hussein to start off the questioning for the committee. Member Hussein.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Joining from the T&TEC. This evening, I just want to focus some attention on what is taking place with respect to the financing of the Commission and the fiscal measures taking place there. I have seen, based on the submissions that were given to us by the T&TEC in March, I believe, there's one issue that raised some concern for me, and that it says that the Commission has been making a continuous loss for, I believe, the last 9 years. Can you give us an indication of why this is so?
Right, good afternoon, sir. Okay, so the Commission has been operating with an income of roughly $3.2 billion and an expenditure of $4.3 billion. So that puts us at a difference of $1.1 billion, which is really the difference, and it is the what you'd consider the loss related to our operations. Just to put it in perspective, tariff revenue accounts for 37 cents per kilowatt hour. I'm just using that to guide you a bit. And when you move away from that, our expenditure is 48 cents per kilowatt hour. So just to let you know what our expenditure is, our expenditure is broken up into generation, which is $1.63 billion. The cost of gas is roughly $1 billion. The cost of salary and wages, employee-related benefits, this is the total cost, $995 million. Then you have capital, local and foreign, as well as taxes and so on. That takes you about $600 million, puts you about $4.3 billion. So when you look at the percentages, the majority of that expenditure is related to generation, which is the combination of conversion and gas. So that's the 1.63 billion plus the 1 billion, which is 2.63 billion. So that's roughly 67-68% of the pie when you look at it related to the commission's operations. Salary and wages, I know it's always an issue. Let's take it one time. That's 23% of our business operation. So because of that, the answer is to get to a value that allows you not to operate. So we operate at a loss of 11 cents per kilowatt hour. So to get to a value of moving away from that 1.1 billion, some item has to shift. So let us look at tariff revenue. That has to either shift up, right? But before we go there, let's look at expenditure, right? So in the expenditure category, you have fixed PPA, power purchase agreements. We have 4 power purchase agreements. 2 of them is expiring in 2029, one in 2037, and one in 2041. So those PPAs exist right now in the system based on our business operations. So that's $1.63 billion that you pay. The cost of gas, right, that we use on the system, right, accounts for that $1 billion. So as I said, you are now talking $2.63 billion, right? Then you have to purchase materials, carry out your business with materials and so on, plus taxes that you have to pay and so on. That in itself is roughly about $600 million. So the question you have to ask is where can we shift? Because salary and wages, total expenditure $995 million. The commission, let's put it clear, the commission has 2,924 employees, of which 312 employees are temporary. In that 2,924, that's the latest figure up to date. If you look at the trends over the last 10 years, you'll see that we hover around that value, and of course we are practically lower than where we were 10 years ago in terms of the number of employees. But our customer base has changed from where it is to now 502,000 customers that we have on the system. So our customer base has changed, and we look at our employee ratio. Now, just to be clear, in case it's been asked, so we have done a manpower audit, and we are looking at we have looked at our employees. We feel satisfied the employees that we have on board is adequate to meet our requirements, and we have always kept around that figure, and we have looked at benchmarking customer to employee ratios with other utilities. So we have also looked at that to see where we are in the picture of things, and given where we are with the employees aspect, right, that seems to be, in our opinion, acceptable. So the question at hand is, where do we go to bridge that $1.1 billion? The commission has been doing a number of things in place. We're not just saying we're going out to the general public. We have been doing a number of things. For example, let's talk gas. So when you talk natural gas costs, we have done a number of initiatives to reduce that cost from where it was to where it is now. Issue with the natural gas, though, is there's a 3% escalation. But bear in mind, I have indicated that that cost is $1 billion, and we do not pay. That is the difference that we don't pay. We pay everything else, and that $1 billion, 1.1 billion that we have spoken about, which is the difference between income and expenditure, is made up by us not being able to meet our commitments to the National Gas Company. We do pay some payments to the National Gas Company, but certainly it's not at the level of the value that the gas bill is, which is $1 billion per year. So that
is the gas subsidized by the state?
Right. So the gas is subsidized by the state. So gas is sold at $1.5882 per MMBTU. We pay in TT, but just to point it out, it is subsidized by the state. The true price of gas hovers in, a couple of years ago, it was $3, it's $2.96, it's $2.76. So for all intents and purposes, the gas price, we are subsidized by 50% average of the true price of the gas in the public market. We sell at 5.5 cents US. I'm using this as a guide, at 5.5 cents per kilowatt hour. If you unsubsidize T&TEC, you offer the gas at the full price, and you unsubsidize T&TEC, then we will sell at 9 cents US per kilowatt hour. Let's say that. Let's say we don't have any issues with the gas. That's the one that we get subsidies where we get at a lower price. So then we will sell at 9 cents per kilowatt hour. Anyway in this globe, any unsubsidized electricity will start off at 12 cents per kilowatt hour. So this is the issue, right, that we are operating with. Everything we do, so I have given you the major categories, and everything that we do, we try to see how best, and we don't. I want to make this very clear to the public. As best as possible, we do not compromise on the reliability of supply in terms of our infrastructure work. So that is very important for us at T&TEC, right? And the executive management, the entire staff at T&TEC, and I want to say this, I mean, sometimes, people see the trucks outside there, they see one or two issues, but we have a lot of dedicated, hard-working employees that go beyond the call. And I'm saying what we do here in terms of our business operation, one of the key things is that we do expansion, whatever has to be done, transformer infrastructure, transmission infrastructure, all the infrastructure. Of course, there's more that we could do, but at best as possible, the minimum that we could do to make sure the system grows and is reliable, we continue to do at T&TEC. So I just want to pause.
Just to be clear, the $1 billion gas price that you quoted first, the roughly $1 billion gas price, that is the subsidized price.
That is correct, sir. That is the subsidized price.
And you mentioned four power purchase agreement. Who did we sign these agreements with?
Right. So you have two with PowerGen, one with Trinity, and one with TGU. TGU 2041, PowerGen have two. One is 2014, and it's now 2029 is going to expire. The other one is going to expire at 2037, and the Trinity is 2029 is going to expire.
And just to be clear, I know you mentioned that the salaries and wages, and you indicated how dedicated the employees are at the commission.
Yes, sir.
It's a high wage bill, and T&TEC is making a loss. I just want to be abundantly clear. There's no plan at this time for T&TEC to send home any workers.
Not at this time, but the entire, when we compare, so we have compared this figure to, again, international figures. And when I talk international, Caribbean and abroad. So that figure, as I say, is 23% of our total expenditure, right? And at this time, we, based on the manpower audit, Ms. Cheeseman is looking at that. We have no intention at this time. We are trying our best to make sure that all our employees really remain on board. But just to put it in perspective, I want to say this. So it's important I say this. If you say 312 employees need to go home, that's $52 million. I'm looking for $1.1 billion. Right? So I just want to put that in perspective. And I also want to say this to you. Just forgive me for saying it. If you look at the numbers, T&TEC, the way we run our business, I cannot take somebody from out there overnight and put them to climb poles, put them to maintain transformers. So we have to go through a training program. When we look at the number of people that are going in the next 5 years, because we have looked at that also, it's 267 people, if my memory serves me right, that is going to leave in the next 5 years. So I have to cater for bringing people on board, training them, giving them enough time to train, right? Because of the nature of our business, to be able to be incorporated in the business in full. Thank you very much, sir.
And also, illegal connections. Do those illegal connections contribute to a loss that the commission would have reported?
Right. So our losses on the commission is made up of two categories. Our losses on the system is roughly 9%, of which the majority of that is what you call technical losses. Technical losses is the line is you have long lines and there would be heat and all the other issues. So that's the technical loss. The non-technical loss would be anything related to current seal and so on. We did the analysis and we are looking at 0.25%, 0.025% of what we feel would be contributing towards current stealing.
And how many, if you did a audit also, how many illegal connections are there roughly in Trinidad and Tobago?
Right. So
if you could give a figure.
Right. So we would have done an amnesty, and we have sent that amnesty in the newspaper for people for customers to come forward, individuals to come forward and identify and give them the opportunity to come on the grid. Now I'm going to guesstimate this. I want to make this clear. So this is going to be a guesstimate of how much might be on the grid, and I would probably say in the region of about I would say about 3,000 throughout Trinidad and Tobago.
3,000.
That's correct, sir.
And Chairman, if you permit me, one last question on this area. Mr. Ramsuk, you indicated that the Commission is seeking to obtain an economic tariff that will enable it to meet all its obligations as they become due, and in addition, managing dispatch regime to minimize gas usage. You mind giving us what is the value of this economic tariff that the Commission is seeking?
Right. So I could answer you very simple, sir. So that matter, we have completed our business plan. The Ministry of Line Ministry is looking at it, and that is all I'm going to say at this point in time. So I certainly won't be able to say anything further on this. But just to mention, sir, I think it's important I say this. The Commission, as I say, and you would have seen it in the package we included. We have gone through a number of initiatives, right? Anything that we can do to market our business, to reduce cost, to be able to bring in revenue other than from light and power, we have been doing. And as we speak, we continue to do that. We have a business unit. Mr. Francois is in charge of that unit, and he has a number of initiatives that he has in place. So I want to make it clear, the management is not saying the solution to our issue is a review. I want to make that very clear, right? We're looking at every possible avenue because we know the situation outside. If we get our calls, we live it every day with the customers that call us, right? So thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Ramsuk. One thing I would just like to follow up on based on what was asked by Member Hussein. And in page 3 of the response that to question 4 that was sent by T&TEC to our questions, response, in terms of the Commission finances for the past 5 years, the question was asked, the efforts being taken, if any, to improve the financial position of the Commission. Now, you have answered that to quite some extent, but in your written response, you mentioned about the Business Development and Administration Department. I think you have said it's headed by Mr. Francois. And you refer to a 5-year operational plan. And you went on to list 12 items that the Commission is looking at in order to increase revenue to the Commission. Could the committee get an idea of where we are generally with this operational plan, and what quantum of revenue is T&TEC expecting to generate over the next 5 years by execution of this 12-point plan that you have submitted to the committee?
All right, so I'll put you on to Mr. Balgobin, and he probably, and either Mr. Francois will start it off, and if I have to join him back, I'll join in.
Yes. Right. So the 12-point plan you're referring to is a number of initiatives across the organization. Some have to do with reducing gas consumption based on the dispatch of power from the most efficient producer first, which is TGU. Building the second double circuit line from Union Estate to Gandhi to bring that full dispatch of power onto the national grid. So then there are initiatives to improve revenue in terms of the price that we charge customers for services that we render to them. For example, for the movement of lines or any other works, what we refer to as major contracting costs, the transformer rental rates, pole rental agreements with the communications providers. These are all geared towards either reducing costs or increasing revenue from non-light and power sources. I don't have with me right now exactly how much these various measures would yield, but Mr. Bell is going to talk about the dispatch of power and how that would impact on T&TEC's financial position.
Okay, Mr. Bell.
Hi, good afternoon again, all. In terms of the dispatch, you find that the dispatch and how we dispatch machines at the various IPPs is very critical, because the more we run the more efficient machines, the lower the gas consumption will be. So in recent years, we have been speaking with the IPPs and seeking information as to which are the more efficient.
Could those, other than Mr. Bell, could everyone else mute their mics, please, because we're getting some feedback? Please continue, Mr. Bell.
Yeah, so in dealing with the IPPs and getting as much information as we can, we have been able to identify the more efficient machines. So you find that during the dispatch now, we are dispatching the machines based on their efficiencies, and that is helping us to reduce that whole gas consumption. And as we continue to do it, we'll get more. So once we get that, we are in the region presently at about $5 million TT annually $100 million that we will be able to save over. Right? So that dispatch becomes very critical, and that is why we are focusing on that area to improve it as much as we can.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ramsuk, what I would like to ask, I know Mr. Balgovin said he would not have all the figures and everything and projections available at his fingertips, but if the commission could submit to the committee in writing, from these 12 points that you have identified here, what are the savings or / revenue generation that you expect from these measures? And if it could be projected for probably the next 5 years, the committee would greatly appreciate that.
Certainly, Chairman, we'll provide that information.
Mr. Chairman, might I jump in here with a question?
Yeah, sure, Mr. Member De Freitas.
Thank you. So I've heard the individuals from T&TEC talk about generating revenue, but I haven't heard anything in relation to renewables and whether that is an avenue that T&TEC is looking at. And the reason I'm saying this is because just one that I could think about is what is to come in about 20, 25 years' time, which is the upsurge in the use of electric vehicles, which falls fairly in the lap of T&TEC. Is T&TEC preparing for the upsurge in the use of renewables, things like charging stations that would be required once we get to that point? Because as you would know, there's an intent globally to ban the use of combustion vehicles and therefore move solely and wholly manufacturing and sales to electric vehicles. So is T&TEC preparing for this as a possible revenue source later on?
Certainly, sir. And I'm glad you raised that question, and I just want to take some time to explain what is happening with us with regards to renewables. So at this point in time, discussions are ongoing for 112.2 megawatt renewable plant. Most of it is going to be located in Point Lisas, Esperanza, and a section of it at Trinidad. So that discussion is already ongoing, and once that materializes, the tender process has already been closed. The PPA discussions are taking place, and once that is completed, we expect to have that 12.2 megawatts on the grid. Just a point to raise, and it's very important that I raise this point. And we also looking at a 700 kilowatts at the Queen's Park Savannah, which is a vehicle charge station, and is also going to be put in capacity on the grid, right? That is also an ongoing project with the Ministry of Energy and T&TEC. And inclusive of that, we also have an infrastructure that is going on at the Piarco International Airport. So, but just to put it in perspective, it's important I raise this point. So, when you talk, so the value that we are looking at to get that capacity with renewable is 4 US cents per kilowatt hour. That's the kind of value we're looking at this point in time. The value of the gas, the value of our generation cost right now is 4.7 US cents per kilowatt hour. So I'm comparing it. So it's lower. So let's be clear. With the renewable, it's 4 cents. It's 4.7 cents, right, is the US. That is the cost right now that is costing us for both generation and gas at the subsidized rate. At the unsubsidized rate, it's 5.9 cents. So it's better. So we are paying more, it's 5.9 cents, right, at the unsubsidized rate. So I use the unsubsidized rate, assuming that, you know, we unsubsidize the gas. This is the value that is 5.9 cents, right? 4 cents when you go renewable. But this renewable that we are bringing on board, it's important to note, is called non-dispatchable. So non-dispatchable is going to cost you 4 cents, right? That's the kind of value, as I say, we pay when we combine generation and we combine gas, 4.7 cents at the subsidized rate, and at the unsubsidized rate, 5.9 cents. What we mean by non-dispatchable? It means we're going to have to tailor the grid so that when this capacity is injected on the grid, it's not going to be available 24/365. It's going to only be available at an average about 30% of the time. So you're supplying capacity on the grid a day like today, cloud cover, rain, you're going to lose that power. So that capacity at 4 cents, you're going to lose it. So it's no guaranteed capacity. So having said that, it's like taking a vehicle. So the bus is running with photovoltaics on the top and it's running. But once the cloud comes out, the bus is going to shut down. It means I'm going to have a bus still available to be able to pick up the passengers. So I have to maintain the level of generation still maintain this level of generation when I have non-dispatchable resources. When I go into the term dispatchable, where you add battery backup and so on, you move from 4 cents to 8 cents. So you move from 4 cents to 8 cents for it to be non-dispatchable. I got to be fair in the statement, though, and I'll tell you why I'm going to say this. So you get an idea, but that is the way you're sure now you're going to have capacity as you need it with renewables. The country, though, will benefit significantly in there because the gas that I was taking for the fossil fuels that I was taking to run the plant right now will be freed up, for which the country could sell at twice the price because it's selling to T&TEC at 1/2 the price. When I minus that figure that the country will benefit from, the figure of 8 cents moves to 5 cents for dispatchable. So it's slightly comparable to the 5.9 cents that I told you a while ago for our unsubsidized plant with fossil fuel. Having said that, prices are dropping as time go by, and we will probably reach that value, hopefully, where overall it will come down to much lower than the fossil fuel. But also, just to put it in perspective, you're also getting plants now that are far more efficient, and even those plants are using less gas, and therefore they are also competing a little bit with the renewables. But at the end of the day, you have to look at where you are, and you have to look at the renewables, and you have to be clear what you're buying into the renewables. But the commission is moving directly with the renewables. As I said, that we expect to conclude that matter and have that plant in another 1.5 to 2 years. Let's say next 2 years plus. That is the 112.2 megawatt plant. Having said that, we have a team. Mr. Bell is heading that team, and he has already started to look at the issue of marketing photovoltaics to customers as an option. Sorry about that, sir. Yeah, so he's looking at marketing photovoltaics as an option, and also we are looking at charge stations at appropriate points. That's one of his mandates, so that once the electric industry vehicles take over, that we will be clearly ready, right, to meet the requirements. Of course, the regulator has to be involved because this whole issue of how you sell and so on is going to be very important. Thank you very much.
Okay, and just the last question. So I'm glad to hear all of what you just said. So you all in any way in collaboration with the car dealers so that they are aware of when, all of this comes to fruition, so that they themselves can, pivot in relation to combustible vehicles versus electric vehicles. Because it is right now, they do bring in some, but it's not something that's widespread. And I expect some point in the future that it will become, widespread, that they themselves would need to purchase more electric than they would combustible vehicles. So are you all working in tandem with them, or are they aware of all of this?
Mr. Francois will take it.
All right. Good afternoon again, everyone. Well, okay. So far there's only one of the new car dealerships that are marketing electric vehicles in any big way. And they have approached us. So we are, T&TEC, willing to partner with any car dealership in order to advance the use of electric vehicles in the country. As you would have mentioned, certainly the world is heading in that direction. And after next 10 to 20 years, some of the countries have pledged to do away with combustion ignition engines. So certainly we are partnering with them. Also PTSC would have approached us as well. So we are, liaising with these dealerships. We are liaising with our sister utility in order to ensure that we are, provide the level of service that is required for these customers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ramsup, if I could just piggyback on what Member De Freitas asked and what you outlined. Thanks for that information. But I'm just thinking about additional capacity coming onto the grid from renewable energy sources. And then in terms of the PPA, we have in existence a take or pay or take or pay agreements under all the PPA. So wouldn't we be in a predicament where you have additional capacity coming on, which we have to, which we will have expenditure on, and then we are locked in situations with the PPAs where we have to pay for unutilized capacity?
Thank you very much, sir. I'm glad you've raised that question. So the system as it stands, the contracted capacity is 1754 megawatts. Tobago Cove Power Station is operating at 84, and we have a small generating operation at Scarborough that makes it 91. Total capacity available, 1845 megawatts. If you take the peak demand as 1370 megawatts, we average about 475 megawatts that we have available on the system as capacity. So you raise an excellent question there, Chairman, because I have capacity. I have capacity, and then if I have to go anywhere else, it's going to cost me. But I have to also look at going somewhere else too, because renewables are a very important item in the agenda, and certainly is one of the things that we have to embrace. So at the 475 megawatt capacity, I just want to raise a little issue with regards to that. I have to also have what you call spinning reserve. So I'm going to go back with the bus. So the bus is driving down the road and taking up passengers. So I have a bus. The largest bus that I have will take up 135 passengers. That is at TGU. The plant is rated 135 megawatts. So that I have to have spare capacity in the event that that bus breakdown, that could take up 135 people. So reserve capacity 135 minus from 475. Then I also have to take into consideration that I may have a bus down. So I may have a plant down. So if I have that, passengers are going to be affected. So I have to have capacity again to supply. So if I say another 135, I use the largest, the worst case condition, right? So I say another 135, right? That's 270. It puts me at 200 megawatts of capacity sitting there. The value of 200 megawatts of capacity is $250 million a year. That is the kind of cost that I am dealing with, that I have sitting, that I have to deal with. Now, bear in mind that, just for note, with the closing of the Alutrin plant, that plant was expected to take 270 megawatts. With the closure of that Alutrin plant, the way the power purchase agreement was set up, the commission would have to, with the closure of that plant and the fact that 270 megawatts that TGU was putting together to supply them will now go to the commission, for which the commission had to pay for.
Right. So it's just that I was seeing a sort of a potential a situation where I mean we have to optimize standby capacity, right, on your system. And the thing is, because in optimizing, it means you want to try to keep at optimal level that expenditure, that 250 million for that 200 kilowatt that you're talking about. Because, I mean, unfortunately, the Commission is in a deficit situation. And I'm sure it will be a challenge for the Commission, for you all, when you look at all of the scenarios as to what is the optimal arrangement, you know, that you would be looking at. And I guess that would be taken into consideration in your business planning that you are engaged in at this point in time. Because you're not going to recover everything with tariffs. I don't see the RIC giving you that luxury. So that in terms of this take and pay, is there any room within those PPAs for renegotiation?
That's another excellent question. So we have approached all the PPAs. We have approached one particular power producer. We have engaged in a dialogue with that possibility. I want to admit it didn't go too well, but we are going back again to have that discussion. But bear in mind the point I raised in 2029, which is approaching us very closely from this point in time. We are nearing making decisions. We'll then have to make those kinds of decisions. Of course, so two of the PPAs are going to be coming to a conclusion in 2029. PowerGen PPA at 624 and the Trinity PPA, power purchase agreement. The thing about this is that we also have to look at our load growth and what are the prospective customers that will come on board. And when I gave you this figure, I took into consideration Petrotrin that normally will use 60 megawatt. The refinery, I expect, you know, that hoping things will go well and that will return back. We have gotten some discussions with what used to be called the Mittal plant, and a company has shown some interest in a portion of reactivating that plant. Of course, they will have to get all the approvals and so on. I will have to get ministerial approval and all those things like that. So assuming that these items take place, then, you know, there's another company, I don't want to give the name, that is also asking for quite a significant amount of capacity that Mr. Bell is having dialogue with. And we hope that we succeed in that arrangement, in which case, very quickly, you could then do away with that value that I told you about. And therefore, we have been planning we have a section that plans and looks at generation expansion, and that's an item we are looking at. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ramsuk. I would like to go to Member Morris Julian. She has some questions she'd like to pose to you all.
Thank you, Chairman. Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Chairman Ramsuk. How are you?
Well, very good, General Manager, but I like the chairman position. I mean, I don't know, chairman was like, the chairman was like that, I don't want to get fired.
Apologies, Mr. Ramsuk. Mr. Ramsuk, I'm quite familiar with you and your work ethic, and I know how you usually operate and how you do business. So I expect you'll be able to answer fully this pressing question that we have regarding your COVID-19 plans currently, because you have been listed as an essential service. However, you're also an organization with many administrative staff, and I am curious in what arrangements you are making with the new restrictions.
So thank you very much, and thank you for your kind words. I do appreciate it. So I'll put you on to Ms. Cheeseman. She is very versed at this, and she would answer clearly all the details.
Thank you.
Okay, so maybe I should give you a little bit of history in terms of when the pandemic started until now. We would have had a total of 34 employees who would have been positive for COVID-19. And we would have put a lot of things in place in terms of preparing ourselves to safeguard our employees. Lots and lots of measures, and we continue to do so. With respect to the recent restrictions, what we would have done, we would have made arrangements to, even though we are an essential service, and I know people depend on us out there, we tried as best as possible to see where we could rotate our employees in such a way that it would not impact on the service that we have to do, the essential service that we have to deliver to the customers. So within the office, all our non-supervisory staff, we would have put them on a 50% rotation, right? And we are doing it on a 3-day, 2-day arrangement where they stay home for 3 days and 1 week, and then the following week, 2 days, and we rotate it like that. This would have come about after we would have had some extensive discussions with the union and the majority bargaining unit. And we would have come up with, this 3-2 arrangement that we would have extended to our office staff. In terms of the field staff though, while we weren't able to give a rotation there because of the importance of the service that they have to deliver to make sure the lights are kept on, we've made arrangements where we stagger their reporting time to work. So we have crews that will report at 7 a.m., some will report at 8 a.m., and this will disallow any kind of congregation that may take place with everybody coming at the same reporting time. And when they finish their work out there and they return to the yard, they would, to their various work sites, they would prepare for the next day and leave office one time. So we don't have them working the full day. They go, they do all the essential duties, they come back, prepare for the next day, and then they're allowed to leave. Our service centers, we would have, now that is a very critical arm of the operations, and we would have changed our service centers closing hours from 3:45. We would have gone down to 2:30, so that our employees in the service center, as soon as they finish balance, they could leave by about 3 o'clock. They'll be able to leave and go home. And that is where we're at. We have put a lot of, especially the service centers is the area where we have the most customer contact, people coming in, ongoing to pay their bills and do other business operations. And we would have put in a lot of measures within that area to ensure the safety of our employees. We would have done several things from even the start of the pandemic, where we would have put in glass partitions between the staff and the customers with dips for them to receive the money, intercom system installed so that the customer service reps will interact with the customers via that medium. Where possible, we would have put sinks outside of the service center so that customers, upon entering, they would wash their hands. We take their temperatures as soon as they reach. We have our sanitizer there for them to use. We make sure we have security managing the service centers very closely to make sure people are not coming in without masks. They have to wear their masks. So we've done quite a bit that we feel that we could say the service centers where we have the majority of customer external interaction is probably one of the safest places within the commission based on all the measures we've put in place. In terms of our employees, we would have done an employee handbook with all the protocols expected. If you're sick, do not come to work, wear your mask, sanitize ongoing. We have all our sanitization is a very, very critical part of what we do. And we've made the place very safe so that when we are here, we reduce the risk of contracting the virus. Now, as I mentioned, we would have had quite a number of cases, but we're not immune to the virus. It's live out there. But we've put in all possible measures to try and protect our employees as best as possible. Now, we've had some issues, like the country, persons who might be found not wearing their mask, not wearing it properly, and we're dealing with that because it calls for a behavioral change for persons to protect themselves against the virus. And we've been reinforcing all the requirements, the Ministry of Health protocols. We have the posters all around. We make ongoing announcements reminding people what is expected. So to get back to your direct question, we've put measures in place to try and not have everybody in the workforce at the same time. And in areas where we could have allowed people to stay away from work in the interest of not having a lot of people out there, we would have done so. We've also had situations where it can be afforded for people to work from home. So for example, our legal officers, they can work from home We have persons within our IT department who could deliver, what our needs are off-site from home. So as far as possible, we've looked at every angle of the operations to see where we could actually put people on a rotation, where we would need where we need you to be here. There are some positions like that. Our control room, our core power plant, we can't afford to not have, our employees there, but we've put things in place to safeguard there, to make sure that they are safe. Okay.
Thank you very much. Through the chairman, I'm very impressed to see that you all have everything in place. I do have one question though when it comes to your customers, because in reducing the time, that may lead to lengthier lines. Just recently with pension payment being this week, I saw long lines around all the banks and also in the T&TEC service area, the area that I reside in. Have you put anything in place? Now, I'm telling you, I only recently learned how to pay my bill online. And I'm fairly tech savvy. What are you putting in place, or have you anything to put in place for customers during this time, especially our older citizens?
Okay. All right.
Yeah. All right. So what we would have done is, since the beginning of the pandemic last year, March, we would have developed a quick pay page where customers can go in and pay via the credit card or their Visa debit cards. And they can make a payment in 3 or 4 very quick steps. They can make a payment. It gives the balance on the account and it allows you to pay, and it hits your account almost immediately. So if a person was in fact on the disconnection list, then they will come off the list immediately once they make that payment via the online quick pay page. Also, we would have offered e-bills from before that. So we offered e-billing, and via this approach, you don't have to wait to get your bills, your paper bills from TT Post, but they come direct to you in your inbox. We would have also, once we have a customer's email address, we send e-bill notifications to that customer. So again, they can get not an e-bill per se, but they can get what their outstanding bill is, and they can go to Quick Pay and make that payment directly afterwards. So we have a number of things in place to allow customers to not have to come into the commission, and we are further trying to develop systems that are customer-facing systems, so you can make things like reports and so on. You can make that online. We are further, doing that in terms of our IT infrastructure. We are trying to make it as online as possible for our customers. So that's what we're doing right now, in time here.
Okay, thank you. Through the chairman, I have another question. Now, 2 years ago, we would not have envisioned COVID-19 and all its ramifications, and we have a tendency to say things like God is a Trinity, and we do not seem to have a good preparation plan. And when I say we, I mean collectively as a nation, as a people, we tend to shrug off, especially when it comes to natural disaster. So in its SWOT analysis, there seemed to be a weakness in your disaster preparedness. And I'm asking, is there a disaster preparedness plan? What is the reason why with what is going on in St. Vincent, for example? What do you have in place? Are you currently looking to put something in place? Because we need to find out how we would deal in the event of a natural disaster, being that you are indeed one of the most essential services. I didn't have electricity for the whole day yesterday and I cried. So what are the plans?
Right. Good afternoon again. So when we did our strategic plan, we made sure that we went around to all our employees. We made sure we went around to all our employees, and as a result, we got their opinions and so on. Now, while we said there's a weakness in the disaster preparedness, we still have systems in place, and I'll tell you what they are, but we feel we are a little concerned because we feel we could do a lot better than what we have existed at this point in time. So in terms of disaster preparedness, there are two aspects if we want to get a hit by a hurricane, earthquake, or any other disaster that hits us that we require help. Both help, the types of help that we require will be both labor and materials. On the labor side, we have partnered with CARILEC, and we have partnered with a number of other institutions that will provide assistance for us. So we have contact numbers, we have all the details related to that. We have our local, we have our local contacts for all of the assistance we can get locally. We have our employees. So we feel fairly satisfied on the labor aspect of assistance. Should the time arise where we need that assistance, we have clear systems now in place to deal with that. Contacts, all the arrangements, what is required, and so on. In the case of material requirement, I want to admit that is a little concerning to us. So we have done a number of things in the past. We have done the mobile substations. That has worked fairly okay, but it's not sufficient to manage the entire country. Just small pockets that go out. We are looking to purchase another set once we get board approval. And then in parallel to that, we are also acquiring an amphibious vehicle. So the amphibious vehicle we expect to acquire in November, and that is a vehicle that will move from the road to the flooded area, to the river, to the sea, right, automatically. So it will drive from one point, you get a flood, you get an area where we can't access, it's going to be able to access it. It's a specially designed vehicle that we expect to acquire. All the arrangements have been made. It's just awaiting delivery in November of this year, if all goes well. So we have done our issues with the amphibious vehicle and so on. Parallel to that, we have now put up a number of systems in place to acquire what you call emergency spares. Through the initiative of the minister, as well as our line minister, as well as our chairman, we have partnered with Florida Light and Power. So we have interacted with Florida Light and Power. Of course, at this point in time, that because of COVID, we need to we have to move further with that. But we have partnered with them, we have interacted with them to give us assistance and guidance, especially in the case of disaster preparedness, because they of course have good systems in place. So we are using that. We are looking at how we acquire our what you call our spares. We are looking at suppliers and contacts for suppliers who will provide us with spares, and we have to look at people who will be able to do that in a short space of time. We are also tailoring our procurement slightly for key spares like pole, transformers, conductors, and insulators. I want to say that we're not that good yet, and we really need to get there. We have started the process where we could get commitments in the event that I need a second-year supply in the first year, that I can get it manufactured and sitting there without having to pay for it, but of course with a commitment that I will buy it if I don't take it in the first year, that I will take it in the second year. So if an emergency occurs, I can then quickly get poles, conductors, insulators, transformers quickly into the country, right, to be able to deal with the issue of disaster preparedness and so on. So I would say if on the labor side, I would say I'm 90% there. On the material side, I'm not too good with that. I would put myself 30% there, and I need to move better. I need to do better with that. We have a system in place, and we're moving with that system.
Chairman, if you will just allow me one last comment, please, to address Mr. Ramsuk. Mr. Ramsuk, Member Dino Brega, Member Kennedy, Richards, we are all local government, past local government practitioners. So we are very much involved, or once very much involved with disaster management. And I must express my concern because yes, labor is important, but it is extremely urgent that you deal with the material matter, because we are seeing what is happening globally, and we cannot speak about, well, at least we have the staff, because we could use Greenville, for example. I saw your crews out there feverishly working through all the night in order to protect persons from coming in contact with live electricity with the flood water. And from my viewpoint, they themselves weren't sure what they had to do. So I must express concern with regards to your disaster preparedness plan, and I really hope that you go full force with this, Mr. Ramsu, because it's extremely important in your organization. Thank you very much. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you very much, Member Morris Julian. Mr. Ramsuka, just to add to what the member was saying is that, you know, the committee, we would urge you to look at what Member Julian is suggesting, particularly in the context of the impact of climate change, because you would be aware that, you know, with climate changes and the impact it is having on the small island developing nations, it's increasing every year. And we have seen evidence of that in Trinidad and Tobago over the past years. So, you know, if some degree of urgency could be given to that aspect of the Commission's work. I would like to invite our member, Saddam Hussein. Member Hussein had some other questions that he would like to pose to the Commission. Member Hussein?
Thank you very much again, Chairman. So again, I have a couple of questions relating to the Commission. I was looking at the debts that are owed to the Commission, and roughly it's about $1.8 billion, am I right?
Right, so it's averaging 1.3, 1.4 billion when you take the total value at this point in time, both majority of which, well, you have private and public. So you have the total value and then you have the submissions, yeah, but the arrears will put you at 1.4, but the total will be in that vicinity you spoke about.
1.8. And out of that 1.8, about the highest is light and power for the public, which is about $1.1 billion in debts owed from public authorities to the Commission. What steps have been taken in order to recover some of these monies that are owing to the Commission? Because, I mean, the Commission can do with whatever money is available to it. So you have $1.8 billion outstanding.
Well, okay, so so that's again a good point raised there. When we speak about the debt, though, I have to take it in a holistic manner. So it's public debt that you have spoken about, but on the other end, I also get assistance. So it's a sort of a balancing arrangement where, you know, while we're dealing with government accounts, I get significant assistance from the government when it comes to, well, PSIP as one, but also the payments of the NGC bills and so on. So when you balance it off, really it goes the other way. So take, for example, up to 2018, whatever I owed the National Gas Company has been set up as an arrangement by the government to pay in full. So via government guarantee. So via a government arrangement. So that has moved away all the debts from NGC up to 2018. And of course, we have in further discussion. So yes, you have those issues where you have outstanding balances from government institutions, but you know when you sum what I get minus what I have outstanding overall, there is a positive value in terms of what I actually receive. Having said that, though, we continue to interact with a number of the agencies, and we have been going to them. Well, with COVID on, we have been having virtual meetings. And we are getting commitments from them, from a number of the agencies that they, in terms of some payments, it is one of the key initiatives from the my chairman, Mr. Romney. He has taken up that as one of his key initiatives also, and so we've seen some positive improvements, not to the extent that we would like, but certainly we've seen some positive improvements in terms of our collections when it comes to public accounts.
And the point with respect to RIC submitted some comments to us, and RIC basically said that they're undergoing a rate review for T&TEC rates. Now, what I want to ask you is, Mr. Ramsey, are you aware when was the last rate review, one? And two, the RIC wants to finish this rate review in December 2021, but they have indicated that T&TEC hasn't submitted a business plan to date. Can you indicate why the Commission would not have submitted that business plan?
Right, I'll let Mr. Balgobin take it from there, so he will give you the details.
T&TEC has prepared a business plan. A key ingredient in the business plan is the price of natural gas, which is still under negotiation between the government, the national gas company, and T&TEC. So the business plan that was submitted to the RIC has a placeholder value for that price of natural gas. But until the price is firmed up and we have the authorization from the line ministry to submit the business plan to the RIC, we need to hold on that. But all the work associated with the business, all the other work associated with the business plan has been completed. And once that price of natural gas is determined, we will be in a position to submit the business plan to the RIC. The last rate review period was... Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask, right? The price of natural gas, that is the only thing that is holding back the business plan right now.
All of the other inputs into the business plan have been firmed up.
Okay. And when do you expect to get that information?
Right. So I have been having dialogue with the ministry, and they are working on that aspect of things. So I don't anticipate it will be too long before I get that information, but the line ministry will. They're looking at it right now, and I expect shouldn't be too long to get our details.
And the date of the last review?
Last rate review took place, gave us a price up to 2009. So the last increase we had was in 2009.
Thank you. Chairman, I have one more question with regards to the revenue side of the Commission. Mr. Ramsuk, you indicated that the Alutrin plant would have an oversupply now on the grid. Then you alluded to that you're having negotiations with Mittal and some other companies. Roughly, can you give us a figure of what is the loss of revenue of the Commission having regard to the numerous closures of plants in the Point Research estate?
So the annual loss that we have observed, not only with the closure of plants, but also customers asking for reduction in reserve capacity, $60 million per year. So 60.
60.
So yeah. So in addition, that's correct. In addition to those institutions, remember we also have the most recent one, but we hope that will rectify itself soon with M5000 and M4. And then I indicated in the case of Petrotrin and so on. So, but we also had a number of requests for reductions in capacity by a number of customers, based on the business operations. And that is, when we looked at the overall impact on the organization, we are averaging $60 million annually.
And Mr. Ramsuk, with respect to the gas price that is holding back the business plan, is that related anyway to the renegotiated gas sales agreements?
No. So that is the ministry will guide us with that. There'll be a number of factors that the ministry will use, and I'm sure one of the key factors the ministry would use is the impact on the country. So I don't want to go into that direction, but certainly that'll be a factor that they will also use.
Okay, thank you, Member Hussain and Mr. Ramsuk. Before we go to Member Richards, who has his hand up, just two supplemental questions I would ask on the basis of what Member Hussain was raising. One is coming back to the business, your business plan and your business model, on page 16 of Appendix 1 of your strategic plan 2021 to 25, it is stated there that T&TEC's existing business model is considered to be flawed and results in the Commission's inability to cover operating expenses. Would you care to elaborate on that, Mr. Ramsuk, or any member of your team? Because Mr. Balgowin did mention that your business plan that is to go to the RIC, it's ready. We're just waiting on the NGC matter to be sorted out. But if your existing business model is considered to be flawed, as you have stated in your strategic plan, has there been a drastic revision to your business model going forward? It's on page 16 of Appendix 4.
Sorry about that, Chair. I got it. Yeah. So yes, no. When we did this business plan, well, we put the raw details in there because we would have. In this business plan was not business plan. The strategic plan, we involved all our employees, we involved everybody on board. The issue of the weakness in the plan was clearly identified based on income and expenditure. So when we say the weakness identified aspect not adequately explored, right, the present business model is considered to be flawed and it results in the Commission inability to cover operating expenses. It is really related to our income and in terms of how we are structured, both with the income and the operating expenditures that exist, that is not allowing us to meet our expenses. So it's really in that concept that statement was made.
All right, thanks for giving us that explanation. And the other one is in terms of your debt collection. You did respond about the public debt to Member Hussein, but I know that the private debt is still in the order of about $500 million up to 2020. How aggressive is your debt collection policy? Because the document that you submitted to the committee about your debt collection policy seems to be rather dated. And could you update us in terms of your debt collection policy, in terms of its aggressiveness and effectiveness?
Right, so that's an easy one. So at this point, it's averaging $227 million, if my memory serves me right. We received, of which the majority of that debt, when we deal with private accounts, relates to the desalination plan. They have since recently paid us an amount, so we have received some funding from that institution. Part of the discussion that is ongoing with that institution is a $30 million interest related to outstanding arrears, and that we are having discussion with them. When you minus the figure, and you have to look at when you look at the figures that we provide you, it's made up of current bills as well as arrears. And when you look at the current bills, that is we list the entire amount, and that's why you see a higher figure when we list the entire amount. And therefore the true outstanding amount, right? The true outstanding amount for private accounts will be, if the latest was 121 is the 30 days, that is the bills that are 30 days and that is not due yet. So that cannot be considered arrears. And when you minus the desalination portion, you're down to $170 million. And then you minus the 121, you're roughly down to $50 million as the outstanding amount for private accounts. When you take 422,000 customers, I'm just using an example, we have 502,000 customers, and you take 422 customers and you just say, well, look, let's put $200 that some of them owe. You would quickly come up to a figure of $50 million.
Okay, thank you. But would it be possible to submit to the committee in writing age receivables report so that we'll be able to assess and we'll have on record what you are saying, what you are telling us there?
Certainly. We'll submit it, Mr. Francois will submit it.
Okay, thank you. Member Richards?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I have just a three-part question. Firstly, it said that the Commission owes NGC over $2 billion. What has to be done in order for us to clear that debt? That's one. Two, we live in the age of technology. I realized that I noticed that T&TEC has an application. How effective is that application in terms of the day-to-day management of T&TEC and its operation? And third part of that question is, say for instance, in that application, we report an outage of a street light, or maybe an area that is without power. What is the response time given through that application for those things to be rectified? And I may have a follow-up after that.
So, okay, I'll let Mr. Bell take the second part, but I'll take the first part. So, in terms of the National Gas Company, so the present outstanding balance, I'm giving you US and the TT equivalent, 321,647 as of March, which is 2,175,861,408. That is the accumulation of for 2019, 2020, and part of 2021 up to March. Prior to 2018, as I said, we were able to get into an arrangement assisted by the government of Trinidad and Tobago in terms of the payments of all the outstanding balance to the National Gas Company prior to 2018. So that has been dealt with the assistance of the Line Ministry as well as the government. So the outstanding balance that we have now, we continue now to have discussions with the ministry also to go with another similar arrangement where that balance could be dealt with so that our books in terms of the outstanding balance, the NGC, could be dealt with. So we are having some discussions and we're hoping that that becomes fruitful. On the other end, I think the discussion today would have led to where we are in terms of that gap of $1 billion a year in terms of income and expenditure. And I did identify the clear details of all the different expenditures. And as I said, we have looked at all the possible options and we've put a number of initiatives, but we're going to get nowhere close to dealing with that debt of dealing with that bill, that annual bill of the $1.1 billion. So it's really a case where, as I said, you at 5.5 cents, unsubsidized, you're 9 cents. And really the business operation, as I said, at minimum starts at 12 cents in a similar type business anyway, in any jurisdiction for what you'll consider the nature of our operation. So while again, we're going to make every effort, I don't want to say that we're going to get a solution. Certainly it is an issue and it's an existing issue. And I'm hoping this committee also, as we provide you with the data, certainly some, we also have been working at it that, the committee will recognize our situation also here at T&TEC.
So Mr. Ramsuk, if the government says that it cannot meet that shortfall via the Ministry of Public Utilities, then what next?
That's an excellent question. I like to beg. So, to be honest with you, we have to have a balance. Listen, we all live here. I see customers every day. I take my calls when I get it. And I see a lot of people out there also, trying to make it. And you're right. I understand what's happening. We all live here and we're in a situation. I don't want to say I'll be able to want and get a solution, but I want to be honest, I'm scared, equally scared. We deal with people and their lives, and electricity does create a big impact. So, I really don't have the answer. And, you've asked an interesting question, and honestly don't know how to respond to it. But I could only say we have to continue to see how best we could get this thing to work. And that's why we at T&TEC, with the dedicated staff and management, we're trying our best to hold that steering tight and to keep the value as low as possible and to keep that reliability to our customers. I'd let Mr. Bell deal with the issue. I tried to shy away from the answer for that question, but I'll let Mr. Bell deal with the issue with the app.
Well, before you go to the app, something interesting just popped in my mind, and as I told the chairman before, I don't already have any pre-questions, and questions is going to come as I go forward. In terms of running the business model, is your present rate going to be sufficient in the future? Because I'm not thinking right now. Now we understand the situation right now with the cash and everything in the country and worldwide. It's not just a Trinidad and Tobago thing. But is your present rate that you're charging right now going to be sufficient in the foreseeable future when you have to undergo things like heavy maintenance and your regular maintenance and your operation? I understand that you're in a debt and you have to find millions and billions of dollars, but we taking for that because we don't want to create a situation where T&TEC now is going further in debt and we just sinking and we just keep going down the slippery slope to a point where we have no return. So what is the plan going forward that T&TEC management is coming up with?
So Mr. Richards, excellent point. So really, let me say where we are. We're really at the borderline. Yeah, we're really at the borderline. And if we are not careful, we could impact reliability down the road. Yeah, we could impact reliability down the road. And it's important that we say this now, because if we slip, it means
we're getting some feedback. Would you make sure that you're muted?
Right. Okay. We try again.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I want to say this. It's very important that we get a solution, because we are at a borderline and we could go in either direction. So just to answer you, we have kept things very firm in terms of making sure that our expansions take place and it happens in time, and all the different issues that we have to deal with, our infrastructure, transformer upgrades, overhead line maintenance, overhead line upgrades, all the infrastructure that has to be done to make sure we cater for future reliability. But we are at a point where we can't slip, and if we slip, it means it could affect reliability going forward. And that's my concern. I want to be honest with you. At this point, yes, we are. But you see, if you slip, to recover is not going to happen overnight. It will take time, because the nature of our business, it requires infrastructure and things to be done differently. So going forward, I'm being honest with you, it's going to be very difficult in terms of what we have existing. And it really requires, as your committee, a conversation, what are the possibilities? I've given you all the major operating cost items. I've given you the income item. I've given you what our initiatives are. And, we sort of reach a stage where if we are not careful, we're going to have to start to look at reliability. And I've been in this business too long. I really wouldn't want to see that happen. And as I say, it's a concerning issue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ramsey. Just for the part of the technology.
Right, Mr. Bell will deal with that.
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Richards. Concerning the app and the response time, through the app, whether the request is made through the app or if it is made via the phone also, the average response time to a customer suffering an outage or anything affecting his supply is just about 2 hours. 2 hours or so, right? In that, it would be a breakdown. We have about 60% we'll get back within the hour, right? And the remaining 60 just some above the hour. So it will range, but the average time is about 2 hours to get back for the restoration of supply. Concerning the street lighting, as we said, when we submitted the information to the JSC, you would have seen we had an outstanding amount of about roughly 8,000. So we saw that we were a bit off the ball with the street lighting and the repairs. So we have since put in some initiatives, and we have been able to take that outstanding figure down to 5,500 and roughly 550. So the expectation here is that by by the end, by August, we will have that down to 0. So we'll be dealing with the street lighting reports as they are reported, say within a week or so, we'll be responding to those street lights.
All right, thank you. But you didn't answer the part with the app as a tool. How has that benefited, or has that provided any benefits
for
T&TEC in terms of the operation?
Right, so I did start with it because the app is just one of the measures used to make the report. So as I was saying, if the report comes through the app, it is dealt with as it comes through the phone line. All of them are bulk, and we deal with it based on the priorities after that. So the response time through the app is roughly the same, just within that 2-hour band.
Okay, and in terms of technology, is it only that app alone you have, or is there other forms of technology that you have to interface with the public, which should increase the operation?
So the one that I know the public would love to hear is we are commissioning what we call our outage management system. What that is that once supply is lost, T&TEC will automatically receive it via our SCADA and our systems, that we will get that information long before the customer calls that there has been an outage and the outage is suffered. So what the customers will really be doing is to confirm with us that what we have received via the outage management is accurate, and from there we will be able to respond a lot faster. So the new system is that outage management app, where the meters are what will be sending the signal back to the base. So once the meter is without power, we will get that information almost immediately, telling us that the customers have suffered an outage. So we are using different technology.
All right, thank you. And before I go, there's just one question I want to ask before I go. In terms of risk management, do you guys have a risk management policy as to how you create a framework regards to employees with you guys? Because T&TEC doing work with electricity, that is a lot of risk, and I know that you. So do you have a risk management policy, and how do you go about doing that risk?
Right. I just want to highlight one issue with Mr. Bell and the outage management. So we're really happy about that, and we know one of the items that our customers get very they're not happy with us is our call center. Our call center. We know that in our call center, a lot of complaints come in where customers sometimes find it difficult to get to us. We expect that once that outage management system is in place, we will know when the customer loses supply, and therefore we're going to be able to streamline the many incoming calls to avoid that issue. So we expect, as we move in the future, once we set this thing up properly, and it's already happening, when you call, we will, if you're registered, we will be able to tell you, you live in John Street, Curep, and we are aware of your outage, and we are working on it. What it will do is allow us to stream off a number of the incoming calls and focus on the other calls that are not affected by the outage, so that our call center, I know, low marks, and we really want to work at that to make sure that we do a lot better with our call center. In terms of risk, we have an enterprise risk management system, and we have a team that is dealing with that. That falls under Mr. Francois. We would have done our risk register. We would have identified a number of risks. We are now looking at the order of priority of our risk. We are looking at areas that are prone to higher levels of risk, and we're looking at what we are putting in place to avoid these risks. And remember, so I know the issue of disaster preparedness did in fact come up, and that is also an item that is engaging our attention there. And I know Ms. Julian would have raised it, and certainly it's one of the items that we are looking at. And we have, as I say, we are looking at our entire risk, and we are looking in order of priority as we deal with the different risks that are coming with it, that is happening with us. So we do have a risk register, which we are tailoring, and we are looking at it very closely.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ramsuk, and thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Member Richards. Mr. Ramsuk, would it be possible for you to provide the committee with some details of your risk management policy?
Certainly, sir. No issues there.
All right. In terms of the PSIP and the projects under the PSIP, how critical are these projects to the Commission's expansion programs, your transmission systems, and are cuts in the PSIP. Are they compromising in any way your proposed your large-scale maintenance and the necessary expansion that you have to undertake to provide the level of service that you do?
So that again is an excellent point you're raising, Chair. And we have so under the PSIP there are different categories. You have streetlight expansion, to which the government would provide the necessary funds and we would get the appropriate guidance in terms of streetlight expansion. We also have recreation grounds and parks, and that has been an ongoing project. Of course, we also have the maintenance of the parks. But the bigger issue with regards to the public sector investment program is the monies that we are getting for some major projects. So we've been getting some help. One of the key projects that we are dealing with is that second line from Union to Gandhi. And that line is absolutely critical. So that project has already started. The contract has been signed, work has started in terms of the construction of that second line. And why it's important is because at this point in time, we can comfortably get 600 megawatts from the TGU plant. We need to get that additional 120 megawatts onto the grid. So once that second line is constructed, we will be able to get the additional capacity. We have funding, some degree of funding under PSIP, and we will be applying again on the next fiscal period for the additional funding. We know things are difficult, and like anything else, we continue to make every effort with the ministry, and they are very cooperative. We understand the position, and we're making every effort together to look at these priority projects. So we do get the assistance, and once we get it, we move forward with these projects under the public sector investment programs. Chairman, I'm not hearing you. I think you might be muted. Sorry about that.
Sorry. With regards to outages, I think it was an oversight on your part. We only got information on the planned outages. And in terms of the unplanned outages and their forced outages, we did not get the information submitted. So if you could please correct that oversight and provide the committee with the unplanned outages and forced outages information.
Certainly, sir. Sorry about that. Our apologies.
Okay. Now you did refer to in terms of one of the challenges going forward for the commission is the question of acquisition of right-of-ways. And secondly, or maybe you could respond to that first, and then we'll take up the other aspect.
So that's an issue that we have in Chairman. So when we have to do infrastructure construction, you see, ideally, when you look at a number of countries, what exists is what you call a power utility corridor. So they earmark that section of land and so on to allow infrastructure, power utility infrastructure to exist. We find ourselves competing, and we understand the situation, but again, we find ourselves competing whenever we have infrastructure that we have to install. We try to acquire the land wherever we can, because what we try to do is avoid construction where individuals can build infrastructure close to the lines and so on, and then create unsafe situations. So in our legislation, we are looking at these right-of-way access to be able to get some of these right-of-way access to allow us that flexibility to be able to install the infrastructure on the system. Now, just to answer your question, I suppose it may come up also. Underground infrastructure, we are looking at where we can. It is very expensive. We have encouraged new suppliers to go underground, but they shy away from that process whenever they in terms of if they have to pay the cost, they rather go overhead. And to actually convert to underground, we are trying our best, but it's difficult when you already have infrastructure already existing, buildings, roads, and so on, to do excavation and to actually install the underground infrastructure. And it's also quite expensive. And given the predicament financially, it's an item that we will have to look at as we move forward. But wherever we can, we have been looking at other versions like insulated conductors and so on, so that we will avoid cutting the trees. And therefore, we have a number of things in place. In Tobago, we have it on the north side, and we have a number of locations, even Trinidad, where we are using the insulated conductors.
Okay, but in terms of the actual right-of-way acquisitions, under the T&TEC Act, it allows the Commission the authority to acquire lands accordingly based on identified right-of-ways and those things?
Right. So under the Act, under Section 37, it allows me to serve notice to install the infrastructure. But it allows the customer to, if the customer, so I can serve notice under Section 37, I can then go in and install the infrastructure, but it doesn't allow me any right of way or ownership in there. And therefore, if the customer raises an issue, then under under nuisance, I then have no choice but to look at moving the infrastructure. So the right of way access is not really an item that I have granted. So hence the reason why we try to acquire land. So we do apply for money, and we would have gotten funding under the PSIP wherever we have the transmission upgrade infrastructure to acquire the land, so that we could have that right of way access where we install our infrastructures, especially on the transmission grid.
Okay, thank you. In terms of legislation, I think based on your responses to the committee, you did undertake some work a couple of years ago in terms of looking at possible changes to the legislation, T&TEC Act. Could you inform the committee as to where we are with that in terms of with the response from the line ministry as well? And how critical is this to the moving forward for the commission?
So it's very important because there are two aspects of the legislation that we would have sent to you. One would be on renewables. A lot of work is ongoing with the ministry. In fact, up to this morning, I had discussion with the ministry on this aspect of the legislation and items such as the feed-in tariffs and so on. So especially for customers who want to bring renewables onto the grid. So that is not, that is well advanced. The information is with the ministry, and I know it's well advanced. In fact, when I did make the call this morning, a meeting was actually going on that aspect of things. So I feel that I don't want to speak for the ministry, but it may not be too far from moving forward to the next level, so that we could get some sort of approval. The other set of legislation is sort of localized, and that also is that has been submitted to the ministry. And I know a lot of work has gone into that, and we expect, I can't say in terms of where it will be finally tabled to get to be approved, but certainly it has been well advanced at the ministry also.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe if you could indicate to the committee, I know you did provide the document to the committee for our consideration, but maybe if you could point the committee in terms of an order of priority, in terms of what are the necessary pieces of legislation or the changes that you all are looking for, in terms of your strategic planning and your management strategies at this point in time, as to what order of priority should be assigned to the whole exercise. The committee would appreciate that.
Certainly, sir. So you want me to send it in writing to you?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Certainly. Okay.
All right, and to come back to the renewable energy, you mentioned about the 112 megawatts of the solar renewable project that it's in discussion stage, and you're hoping probably over the next year or two to have that much advanced. But within your response, you also made mention of possible renewable energy by looking at wind sources, including Tobago as probably one possible source. And I think you have identified 4 major sites in Trinidad as well. And would you care to update the committee on that aspect?
All right, Mr. Bell, who is the operations person, will do it.
Yes, good afternoon again. Based on the initial assessment, we had the original 12 sites that we had now down to 4. So what we are doing at this time is we are seeking to get some measurements. We'll have to install some measurement meters and stuff, and take measurements over a period of at least 1 year to get data that we can rely on to say that the information gathered is adequate to make a final decision on, because you have to be very careful when you're using things like wind technology and stuff to make sure that you have enough supporting information to guarantee that the investment will bear fruit. So we have identified those 4 spots. We are doing some civil works, soil analysis and stuff to see what would be required if we have to go with, if we have to install structures to put up the wind meters and stuff, or if we can go with a new technology called LiDAR. So we are currently working with the line ministry and a consultant to give us some guidance on going there. So that is something that we will be looking at to see that if over the next year and a half, we can advance the project to such a stage that it can give us the results that will tell us whether it is a go in those 4 places, and if so, how much energy we will be able to get out of plants when installed there, right? Because you have to be very careful with it, because you can't, it's not like we can buy a machine and say we will get enough energy from the wind to provide the power through that machine. It is actually the reverse. We have to get all the measurements to determine what amount of power we will be able to get from any wind turbines that we install there. So that would be about 18 months before we can have a final position also on what exactly we can get from those 4 locations. So we are at that stage for the measurements. Right. We also have a wind turbine that was installed a few years ago down in Gasparillo, right? So it's a small one at 2.5 kilowatts wind turbine. So we have been looking at the type of performance that one has given, and we are using that as a sort of analysis to look at the circuitry and how we would manage the type of knowledge and experience we would require for when we are using on these. So the commission is working on it fully to try to get some positive results.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Bell. Actually, the committee, we commend the initiative of T&TEC in terms of renewable energy. I think the approach is good. Rather than see it as a threat to your operations, you convert it to an opportunity. And really and truly, it will be good for the commission to take the lead role in renewable energy sources for power generation in Trinidad and Tobago. I just have one final question, and then I would invite members of the committee if they have any additional questions, and after which we would ask Mr. Ramsuk to give his closing remarks. And my final question is just a brief one. I notice in your responses, you keep using the word economic tariff. Mr. Ramsuk, would you care to elaborate on that for the benefit of the company when you say economic tariff, what really the commission means?
And let Mr. Bhargavan, he's the expert in this. He lives that every day.
Right. So an economic tariff is a tariff that will enable the commission to cover all of its costs under efficient operation. There are a number of factors that impact on our costs that are outside of our control. 70% of our costs, for example, generation capacity, natural gas, poles, transformers, etc., are priced in US dollars. And so we are subject to the exchange rate risk associated with that. The last time T&TEC made a profit was in 2011 when the exchange rate was 6.30 to 1. And the price of natural gas was 118.18. The price of natural gas escalates by 3% a year. The price that is charged by the independent power producers has a formula, one of the inputs of which is the US Consumer Price Index. So these are all costs that the Commission has had to absorb over these are cost increases that the Commission has had to absorb over the years with a flat tariff. So an economic tariff is one that recognizes the non-controllable cost drivers that impact on our cost profile and allows us to recover the true cost of operation under efficient conditions. That's as much as I can say.
Okay, but would you be putting this across to the RIC for their consideration?
It has to be considered. That's the only way we can cover our operating costs. The true cost of operation has to be met by revenue, or else you're in a situation where you go back into deficit year after year and absorb the impact of the non-controllable costs.
Okay, thank you. Other members of the committee, does any member have any final questions they would like to pose to the officials of T&TEC?
Just one final question, Chair, if you permit me.
Yeah, please do.
Now, based on this economic tariff that you have just outlined, in layman's language, are we just going to, does it really mean that we're just going to ask the state to give T&TEC a little more money in order to cover its operating expenditure?
So that decision, that's again a good point, will remain with the state, and our responsibility is to point out all the different issues and so on. At this point in time, of course, basically that's what's happening, but we will really be guided by the Ministry of Public Utilities, the line minister, and the ministry. So the issues, we would have outlined the facts, and it will really be the state now to give us that final guidance, which, as you would note, has been happening, over the years and with us and so on. And we understand the nature of our business, and we are subjected to guidance. So, but of course, we would advocate the facts.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no further questions from members, I would like to invite Mr. Ramsuk for brief closing remarks.
So members, chairman, and members, I want to say a heartfelt thanks. I know this is we have given you a lot of information. You've asked for additional information, which we will promptly provide. The product we deal with is a very important product for the nation, and we recognize that. We're not taking it for granted. I say we have a lot of good employees in here. Let me say this, and I want to say this in terms of so the population is clear. The technical capabilities of our employees is extremely high, extremely good. I joined the organization many years ago, and every single day you learn something new. So this is an organization made up of a lot of good people and a lot of highly technical people. And people have left us and they've gone abroad and so on, and they've been up so quickly. I know a number of people that I know are working in Ontario Hydro, and a number of institutions, and they grabbed them up very quickly. So the technical capability of our employees is excellent, and I'm saying it on the backdrop of what we provide. We also are very mindful. So we also are very mindful that we all live here, and we know what are the conditions that the country is facing. So we want to continue to pledge, and we appreciate you have a key role in there. History will judge all of us, but we want to make it clear that we will pledge our full support to do everything within our power to make sure that reliability is maintained to our customers. We beg our customers to forgive us when we do have these lengthy outages, and certainly we are not happy, and we do deal with it so that it doesn't occur as best as possible. But we want to thank this committee because as a team, I know you have a mandate, and if you could in any way help us, we would really appreciate it. And I'm sure this discussion would have been part of that. And tell us where we can improve. Tell us where we have shortcomings. Also, we have no issues with that. We are all willing to make changes. So as I say, I just want to officially thank the committee. I'm very grateful for this opportunity. I see it as an opportunity. And sir, and your members, I want to thank you all. I see it as an opportunity, and the population for listening to us. And we certainly will continue to strive to do our best to provide the service to the nation. Right? And we love all our customers, and we certainly do what is necessary. Thank you very much, sir, to your team and everybody else.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ramsuk. Allow me to also extend our appreciation to Mr. Balgobin, your Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Bell, your Chief Technical Officer, Mrs. Cheeseman, your Human Resource Officer, and Mr. Francois, your Chief Operating Officer. The committee, on behalf of the committee, I would like to also extend our appreciation to the viewing and listening audience for tuning in. And of course, I would like to extend sincere thanks to all members of the committee for their participation in this exercise this afternoon. And I must also thank our hardworking secretariat headed by Mr. Johnson Greenwich, and for their tremendous input into this inquiry thus far. So thanks to everyone, and I would now declare this meeting adjourned.
Hi, Chairman. Goodbye, folks.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Okay, goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Have a good afternoon all.
Same.